The report found that the conflicts were a direct result of KPMG accepting separate engagements from different government departments with disparate interests on the same policy issue, all within similar time frames. This issue was particularly compounded by the fact one department, in this case NSW Treasury, was committed to a specific outcome. The Public Accountability Committee was chaired by Greens MP David Shoebridge. The hearings revealed deep divisions between the State Treasury and the NSW Audit Office over the accounting treatment for taking TAHE off the government's budget books. 3 government MPs on the committee lodged a dissenting statement rejecting the report, alleging the committee was selective and was pursuing a political agenda. They noted TAHE was in establishment phase and that it was not dissimilar to other heavy rail entities such as Queensland Rail, VicTrack and Altrac. Introducing commerciality results in greater transparency and accountability for taxpayers, Liberal MPs Scott Barrett and Peter Police and Nationals MP Scott Farlow said in their dissenting statement. Commerciality means having a structure in place that properly accounts for the costs of recurrent services and capital expenditure and provides an identifiable return to the taxpayers on their significant investment. TAHE began operations in 2015 to better manage $40 billion of NSW's heavy rail assets. It was formally established as an independent statutory corporation last year, but only after the government was forced to write down the assets by nearly $20 billion and lift its contribution by $5.6 billion to ensure the new entity could operate as a for-profit agency. Commercial return not viable. The Parliamentary Committee said the viability of the new approach was highly dependent on TAHE having ongoing government support. It is clear that, without a continuous flow of additional taxpayer support, TAHE will not be able to make a viable commercial return on its assets in the short, medium, or long term. A viable economic return can only be achieved by diverting billions of dollars from the public rail operator to TAHE in order to prop up its net financial return, Mr. Shoebridge said in the report's foreword. The report said there was potential for a negative impact on the general government sector budget of up to $14 billion. It cited PwC and KPMG reports and a Treasury update as suggesting a budget risk of up to $14 billion. The committee noted the dual roles that KPMG played in its advice to Treasury and Transport for NSW, and also called for government controls to ensure consultants are chosen to provide genuine independent advice rather than to deliver desired outcomes. The committee also called for measures to ensure agencies share information with each other about the consultancy firms they are using to avoid the same firm being used to provide advice in instances where agencies may have disparate interests in the same policy area. Former KPMG partner Brendan Leon testified to the TAHE inquiry last year. Kate Garati. The committee backed assertions by former KPMG partner Brendan Leon, who had testified he was bullied by senior executives at Treasury over the contents of a report he wrote for Transport for NSW criticizing TAHE. It was highly inappropriate for NSW Treasury to instruct Mr. Brendan Leon, former partner, KPMG Australia, to amend his report, given the report was provided pursuant to KPMG's engagement with Transport for NSW, the report said. The committee did not make a finding on Mr. Lyon's allegation he was also bullied by senior partners at KPMG. The committee recommended the NSW government overhaul the way consultants are hired and used across the bureaucracy to ensure they actually provide independent advice rather than to deliver desired outcomes, and that agencies do not engage the same firm to work in contested policy areas across agencies. In response, KPMG acknowledged it had wrongly had a mindset through the engagements that 2 departments within the same government represented a single client. To address these issues, we have introduced ongoing improvements to the way we work. KPMG has always acted with ethics, transparency and integrity, and we continue to support our people who, at all times, were focused on delivering high-quality work, KPMG said in a statement. NSW Auditor General Margaret Crawford has already said there was an undue reliance on consultants warning it would give rise to the risk that agencies shop for opinions from multiple experts in order to receive advice that matches the outcome being sought, in an earlier report on the state's accounts. Treasury's failures obvious. The committee found NSW Treasury failed to adequately cooperate with the Audit Office in the audit of the state finances for 2021 and singled out the role of former Treasury Secretary Mike Pratt. It was disturbing to see the lack of insight and continued denial of the former Treasury Secretary in his evidence to the committee, Mr. Shoebridge said in the report's foreword. His inability to see the very obvious failures in Treasury's approach and the lack of frankness in his evidence on the financial implications of the Auditor General's review of TAHE did neither him or his agency credit. In response, Mr. Pratt said he agreed with the government MP's dissenting report and their conclusion the parliamentary committee had made very serious allegations about the government and TAHE to suit a political agenda. That paragraph sums it up really well. This was a politically led review, Mr. Pratt told the Australian Financial Review. The report has strong bias politically, and it's a selective use of evidence. We gave extensive evidence on a whole range of things. We didn't hold back on anything, we were upfront, Mr. Pratt said. The opposition and the Greens never liked the TAHE policy from the get-go. But that is the policy of the government, of course, and the government have a right to implement their agreed policy, which is what Treasury was doing. Mr. Pratt said there were significant challenges working with the NSW Audit Office. I'm hoping the review that my replacement Paul Grimes has got underway will shine a light on the difficulty working with the Audit Office. It's been a very one-sided report by the Audit Office. Misleading report, NSW Treasurer. NSW Treasurer Matt Keane. Kate Garati. NSW Treasurer Matt Keane said the government would respond to the report in due course. He noted Mr. Grimes was already carrying out an independent assessment of the way the department had approached the preparation of last year's state financial statements. This is expected to be completed in May. Using a state-owned corporation to maintain and manage heavy rail assets is in line with other states and jurisdictions. The Alliance's claims about safety are misleading and incorrect, Mr. Keane said in a statement. The unqualified opinion from the Auditor General on the total state sector accounts for 2021 demonstrates NSW's accounts fairly reflect the financial position of the state. NSW Shadow Treasurer Daniel Mookie. Michael Quelch. While the budget was given an unqualified opinion by Ms. Crawford, she also demanded major changes to the accounting treatment and funding of transport assets before she would sign off on the state accounts. This forced the government to lift its contribution for access fees to TAHE, undermining the benefits of taking transport infrastructure spending off budget. Mr. Mookie claimed TAHE also risked public safety. The public shouldn't have to waste even more money covering up for this bald-faced budget lie. Our railways will be safer, and the budget healthier the moment TAHE is shut down, he said. The committee chair warned TAHE would seriously risk jeopardizing the $100 billion NSW budget. The committee called for the NSW government to unwind TAHE due to the negative financial impacts it will cause to the general government sector budget and its inability to credibly make a commercial return. It said this creates inevitable tensions inside government between rail safety and rail investment, and the need for TAHE to receive yet more revenue to deliver a real return on assets. As the TAHE experiment unravels, it will inevitably have a serious negative impact on the state's budget overall. For this reason, it is essential for the NSW government to unwind TAHE as soon as practical to prevent the ongoing bleeding of public finances to sustain it, Mr. Shoebridge said.